our CD6 YouTube page. Don't forget to smash the like button.
Are people watching it?
Absolutely.
A few.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like and
sure,
subscribe.
Oh, like and subscribe. Okay, can I start?
Yep, the live stream has started.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Brendan. Good evening. So Molly Hollister here, Chair Community Board 6. We're starting the Executive Committee meeting for June 17th, 2020, and it's 6:34. I'm joined by Jesus Perez, our District Manager, Brendan Berth, Community Associate, and Seema Shah, Secretary. And let's see, what do we need to do first? Seema is taking the minutes, and Seema, do you want to take the attendance, please?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Couple seconds behind. Okay. Hi, everyone. If I'll say your name, if you could just speak verbally that you are present or here, that'd be great. Kyle?
Here.
Asia Badi?
Here.
Beatrice Dismon? I think Beatrice is here. I think I saw her before.
Maybe she got bounced off because I don't see her.
Here.
Oh,
She's
thank
there.
you.
She's just muted.
Thank
I
you.
just muted myself.
Molly Hollister is here. John Keller?
Abby's here in his stead,
Okay,
the vice chair.
sounds good. Kavita Matthew?
Here.
Sandra McKee? Sandra?
She's not here yet.
Okay.
She's still bicycling.
She's on her way.
I am here. Sandra Sherrod?
I'm here.
Thank you. Corinne Vanderdonk?
Here.
Thank you. Brian Van Nieuwenhoven?
Present.
Pam Vassell?
Here.
Great. Claude Winfield?
Present.
Thank you. And I see, Abigail, that you are here, so I'll mark that down. Is Adam here? I know he was only an alternate, so for
Not
today's
as yet.
purposes. Okay. Great. Thanks, guys.
You look great, Seema.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so and then Brendan, do you have the agenda to share?
It's on the
It's
screen.
on the screen.
Oh, I don't have my screen open. I have just this other screen open. Sorry. Let me open. Okay, so we need to adopt the agenda as previewed on the screen, which I can't see because I have it buried in all my other screens.
Make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Sandra seconded. All right. The agenda has been adopted, and then we have the minutes that were sent out with the invite to the meeting from the the May 20th minutes. Do I hear a motion to adopt?
I move to adopt.
Move to adopt. Second.
Okay, thank you. All right. Oh yeah, so I opened this up on the bigger screen. So wow, now it's too big. Sorry, guys, I'm just messing with my screens. All right, so let's move into, I think we all know how to Zoom now, but if we have any public members, you can ask your questions via the Q&A, and we'll answer. Are there any public members on now?
We have 4 of them.
Okay. Do I see them here? Can you see are they electeds or who? Oh,
Under attendees.
Megan. Okay.
Under participants next, if you click the attendees next
I
to
see them. Yep.
panelists.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome, everybody. All right. So we'll move into chair's report. And I have just a few things that mainly I think they're just as you give your reports, the different committees, I can chime in, or we've been talking. So I think a lot of these activities we can go over within the committee's reports. I did want to say, and I meant to say it last meeting, is that if everyone could please take a look at their budget items. And Jesus and the office staff, you did something really great last time by just dividing up all the budget items for each committee.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
We
do
can.
that?
we can send around the Airtable, which lets you sort out all the budget items by committee. So we can send that around.
Can you sort? I don't know. You know how we just had it on one doc for each committee. Can we do that? I think that might be better. Okay. Just not that I don't trust all you fabulous chairs, but I just want to be sure that everyone sees exactly what is in their committee. And also just have it done. It was really useful last time. I think that we had it, you just clearly saw the, you know, I know Parks has a lot of budget items, right? So you know,
We do.
you saw a lot. Anyway.
Would it be helpful if we pre-sorted them all for everyone and then sent you that?
Yes, that's what I'm at. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, so we need to take a look at that because we need to start thinking about 2021, or is it fiscal 2022? I think it might be called fiscal
2022.
Yeah, 22. So, but it's,
Yes.
we need to start thinking about that. They'll be asking, the city needs our responses by the end of the, you know, September, October timing. We'll be writing those responses. So
It's going to be pretty hard to do that with,
I know, no,
with
there's
so much unknown.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we'll have to try to strategize and think ahead a little bit. Yeah, speaking of that, so I'll have Borough Board tomorrow morning, and that should be interesting because this is, you know, there's a lot going on. And I mentioned to Corinne, and I'm not sure who else was copied on that, but I did share the resolution that Budget and Housing and Homeless and Human Rights wrote and full board passed. Both resolutions, I shared them with the other Manhattan Borough chairs, and they loved it. They're all, you know, depending on the timing, some of them have already met. They want to figure out how to write a similar resolution on police brutality and the police budgeting, and so they were really grateful and loved our resolutions. They got.
I have a question. Are they able to sign on to ours and not write their own so that we're not all?
No, but they want to, again, we'll discuss it tomorrow morning at Borough Board, but I think they're all in varying, like CB8 has their full board meeting tonight. So I'm not sure where she's at, but Lyda Camp, the chair of that board, had asked if we could all join together with small, you know, with a committee or some kind of like 2 people representing each board in Manhattan, and continue on the conversation with these issues. So a few of the boards had resolutions already written. Some of them are in progress. So, you know, we'll see, because I'm sure some of them will just write letters, some will write resolutions depending on the timing. So, and then I mentioned, as we were jumping on the call tonight, I was on the East Side Coastal Resiliency Community Advisory Group meeting. The first one was today at 4. So they're about, you know, there were about 25 or 30 CAG members, but it was all the city agencies and some electeds, liaisons, electeds were on the call. So it was talking about, you know, they'll come to land use on the, what's land use date for June, the 22nd?
I'd have to check the calendar.
They'll be at land use this month.
Yeah.
And basically present those, you know, what they presented today, but obviously more CB6 focused. You know, as I suspected that it's a lot of the CAG was, the questions and the people on the CAG were CB3 or below 14th. But it was, you know, so it wasn't a lot of new information, just to say that that was their first CAG meeting, welcome, introduce each other, and to say that the project is on schedule for this fall. So we'll hear more at land use, I'm sure. We can ask more questions about mitigation. I think that's our real issue, is park mitigation. So that's all I have. I'll cut it off there. And Jesus, for the district manager's report.
Hello, everyone. All right, real quick. The identifying information law, rather than go into like the intricacies of the law right now, I've touched briefly on how it impacts us, because some of you may have noticed we're being sticklers about distributing emails of board members more so than in the past. Essentially, we're not allowed to divulge identifying information without express permission. And if we do, we have to file a report with the city's chief privacy officer. So essentially for our purposes, if there is a message that you would like to send to your entire committee, it's best if you send it to the office and we will send it. If you would strongly prefer to send it yourself, that's fine, but please BCC all your committee members. That is what we do. You may have noticed that a few months ago, we started BCCing everyone. Some of you may not have noticed because you would reply back, assuming that everyone else would get it. They didn't. It's just the office that saw it. So it's a slight modification in what we're used to, but it's easier paperwork wise if we do it this way. So again, send it to the office if you want to send a message to your entire committee. If you would prefer to send it yourself, BCC everyone. That's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have one person who doesn't want to be contacted. So
it's not that they don't want to be contacted. It's just that they don't want their email address divulged.
I get it, but
So,
I get it.
So if this person, you know who they are, you probably already have their email from having sent them emails in the past. If you want to use that, that's fine. You already have it, but BCC that person.
Okay, but here's the question, because it's not just me, it could happen on other committees. Can we call that person and say, is it all right if I send you an email just between us, or you know what I mean? Just
It's all right, Pam. That's all right.
If you already have their email, you can email them. It's just BCC them. If it's just between the two of you, then that's fine. But if you're sending an email to the entire committee, BCC them.
Jesus.
Yes.
Just for clarification. So if I email Kyle, I have to also BCC Kyle.
No.
Oh,
If it's just an email between you and Kyle, a quick, you need to ask this or that, no. Just email Kyle as you would normally. This mostly affects when you're emailing the entire committee.
So if I email the, I tend to ask Cody to send it to the entire committee. But so if I do, hold on. So okay, I'm confused.
I don't think you need to worry about it. I think it's fine if everyone.
So like when I send an email to Basa, like I just put everybody in the BCC so that no one can reply all. It's just no one can see everything. It just comes directly from me. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
If your committee doesn't care and they're all, I don't think it's so.
This is not something that we thought. The city has us do this, and they're serious about it. So, if you're going to send something to the entire committee, BCC, that's what we do. If you want the staff to do it, the office staff, keep doing it that way. That's all it is.
And
okay.
we use a Google group. Is that no longer allowed?
It's not, there is no guidance on that in the law. This law is made for like super big agencies. I think for right now, continue using it. And if it becomes an issue, we'll address it with the city and we can let you know.
Great, thank you.
And as you know, like we're just not supposed to, there should be no business like debate back and forth in the Google groups or in emails. It should be done in committee, and so that's the concern.
Hey Sandra, tilt your screen. I'm looking up your nostrils.
Just oh my goodness.
And of course, if there are any additional questions about this, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer.
Great.
But that's it for my report.
Thanks, Jesus. Thank you. All right, so let's go into the committee agendas. Kavitha, 197A committee.
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I think I'm gonna just kind of say what I said last time in the full board. It's we have another meeting scheduled this month for the 29th, I believe, and we're gonna review the proposal or the final report, sorry, from Bennett Midland about the Mount Sinai Beth Israel site and their recommendations on how to move forward with it. We didn't have really enough time for the committee members to digest all the information last time. So hopefully this time we will be able to do that, ask questions. Bennett Midland will be on that meeting. So we should hopefully be able to finalize everything. And if there's any minor tweaks, we'll do it at that point. There is going to be, in that report, they provided also options for ways that they can move forward with us on things and also recommendations for other things that could involve spending some money, including like getting financial modeling down the road. So we're going to have to see where we are, or if we have any budget for those items. And yeah, and then I think I'm hopeful that the working group can come together and help compile information. Corinne and Sandy were extremely helpful in the process. And, you know, Corinne kind of took the lead on trying to get some information together to put on a webpage. I had some back and forth about that. And I want to make sure that also Molly was okay, that we were planning to have this web page as part of the CB6 website, but we're also going to have potentially another site named like Perlman Place something, strategic planning, that would just forward to our website itself. That was something we're working on. Beyond that, I think we are not planning to have a meeting in July. We're going to actually just kind of proceed with anybody's tasks that they're going to take on in terms of providing information or doing outreach and follow up, and then regroup as a committee, I guess, in the fall, if that's, you know, if everything goes according to plan. That's really all I have.
Kavitha, would you like us to send an email to your committee reminding them to read the report? Bennett
Yes.
Midland is confirmed, and we don't want no questions
Exactly.
since we've asked them.
I have a feeling we'll get questions, but I would love a reminder on that Airtable or whatever the thing that Cody had set up. I think Cody set it up. Yeah, about people signing up for various roles, because it would be really helpful if we got everyone working on whether it's website stuff or outreach to various community stakeholders.
We'll do that tomorrow. One thing that may be good for you to give Bennett Midland a heads up on, I won't be able to make a projection for how much money we may have until the fiscal year rolls over, but it may be good if they came prepared to talk about, say, what does $20,000 get us?
We have that, yeah, Jesus, we have that actually all laid out in their report to some extent. They've given us kind of a menu of options. I mean, whether we continue to work with them or anybody else is also up for grabs, but we asked them to provide those items that they thought they could be helpful on moving forward. And kind of, I don't think they have the exact amount, but they have estimated costs for each of those.
Okay, thanks, Kavitha. All right, Sandy for transportation.
So we thought we would have a July meeting, partly because there had been some issues come up. One is they're proposing a protected bike lane for 38th and 39th, and we'd like to see it move forward as quickly as possible. The other thing is that we should add here is we'd like to ask the DOT to make the temporary bike lane that they've installed on 2nd Avenue into a permanent installation. It's been done temporarily while the, I guess sort of COVID related, but we'd like them to make it permanent. So we want to add that onto our agenda.
Sandy, I'm wondering that we already have a resolution on that. It might be a year or two old, right? On 2nd Avenue. Can we just write a letter right away? I mean, there is some urgency because that's 2 or 3 weeks away, and those barricades, those barrels keep getting moved, and I think the MTA Bridge and Tunnel and the DOT are not communicating, and so we just need to insist. I mean, doctors and nurses are coming up and down that thoroughfare, all day long on their bikes, and it's really heavily used now. People are using so many more bikes than ever before. So we should. I think there's some urgency there.
I think we want to do both.
Okay.
And I think we send a letter right away, and I can write one and send it to you for review. But I think the reso is let's take something that's working well now and make it a permanent solution. And we can refer to our previous reso.
Yes.
I mean, we're obviously really in support of this, and we have documented that all along. So, but it's
it is working.
Yeah. And I think since we're going to meet anyway, we could discuss the Andrew's resolution, which the committee wanted to review before it went to full board. So I can send you the text for that. Jesus, just wait.
Okay.
Since we're meeting anyway, we may as well discuss it.
Okay.
And, Molly, when you go to to the meeting tomorrow, will you talk about our resolution for Second Avenue as well?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because that's again, something that if we could get other boards to sign on to doing that type of, pilot program on avenues, it would be.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Not the protected bike lane. You're talking about 50th and 51st. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, the protected bike lane is very much for our area,
Yeah. Yeah. 50th. Yes. Yes.
the 50th to 51st.
Okay.
And I
So-
think maybe we want to add on here, we want an update from the DOT on open streets. What's happening? Are they going to be maintained? Are they going to open more of them?
Can we say open streets and city streets? Both programs?
Yes, yeah.
They're two different things.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sandy, did you see that letter from DOT regarding the city bike infill in our district?
Yes, it's not very specific, so it's a little hard to, I think we can send it out to the committee, especially since we're going to be having a meeting.
Okay.
And if there are any questions come up, we can discuss it at the meeting as well. Unfortunately, It's going to be a longer and longer agenda.
Okay, so your sense is not to have that as a separate item, just sort of to bring it up in maybe new business
I
or your
think it
chair.
can be old business.
Okay.
And is that locations? They're asking for location?
No,
They're telling us where the
They're-
proposed locations are.
there are already existing locations where they're going to add more bikes, essentially.
Oh.
They had like a dozen of them. And they weren't necessarily asking for our input. They're just saying like, this is going to be happening in a matter of weeks. And as far as the language is for the language for the bike lane item, the language would be
Protected bike lane.
discussion on making permanent the temporary bike lane on Second Avenue.
Between 36th and 43rd.
Okay.
Wait, no. It's 42nd to 34th.
42nd. Well, and yeah, I mean,
None of it's permanent. It's all barrels.
Yeah,
It's all barrels.
and it's been a bit spotty.
I don't know if they get run over or someone moves them. I don't know what's happening there, but yeah.
It should be 42nd to 34th.
So this language is more what you're thinking of, Sandy?
Yes.
Yes.
Fine. Yep.
Great. That's a lot for a not usual for a summer transportation committee meeting, but it's good. Okay.
Traffic issues are really going to be a big thing, I think.
Yeah.
Traffic's coming back.
Is that it? Anything else?
Nope, thanks.
Okay. Let's see. So Pam, parks.
Yes, parks. So the first thing that happened is I sent an email to the members of the Parks Committee, BCCing them, of course, and telling them that we were going to put a letter together, not a resolution, but a letter, since we were not going to vote at a full board meeting till September, to discuss various park issues. And I listed 3 items in particular. I said when the letter is written, I would send it to them for their suggestions, their input, whatever, and then we'd send it. So there are really 3 issues that we're dealing with on this thing. One is, when are the playgrounds going to open? And, you know, as a grandparent, as a parent, you know, who's going to clean the damn parks? And how is it going to how are the playgrounds going to be maintained so that the homeless people aren't in there, so that you're dealing with stuff at night? What are the hours? There's no plan for what they're going to do to open these playgrounds. And the parents are apoplectic about opening them. You saw what happened in Brooklyn with the Orthodox community cutting the chains on a park so that they could get in. But, you know, it's a real issue. It should be safe for our kids and for those people who will be going in with the children. So that's the first thing. Anything you want to say about that? No. Okay, the second thing is what's going to happen in
Actually,
general.
I think there is a comment or question.
Okay, go for it.
Corinne?
I just, Pam, I completely agree. And, you know, come September, just at PS40, that playground at PS40 is, you know, normally you can, you know, walk over the heads. It's so packed.
Right.
And yeah, how's that going to work?
Well,
People are doing it, so we need to like find out how other locations are doing it and do it safely. And it's urgent, and we don't have any park space up. You know, maybe there's some. You know, the bids are open, but in Midtown, in our district, there are no parks. They're all closed. We have kids here, and there's no place for them to play except, you know, the concrete area on the Waterside Pier and in St. Barton's, you know, concrete space. And other than that, all the parks are locked and closed, and it's
so
rough.
you know, so I'm going to be honest. I'm very conflicted about it. I frankly, if they can't clean those parks so that the kids can be in the playground safely, I say keep it closed. I'm sorry, you know what I mean? I'll do my job as the chair of this committee and I'll send the letter. But I'm voicing to you what my concern is. I'm not convinced that they can clean it appropriately.
Safely.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a lot of people who are in there. I don't know who goes in there at night.
No, they get locked at night. All the parks by me get locked at night. So no one, they were open before and they didn't have a homeless problem. They'll, you know, they are locked at night.
I mean, but right now, if you go to the East River, it's packed with families, and
Right.
And so if the East Coast Resiliency Project starts up in September,
Right.
I mean,
they're going to start, but they'll start first with Asser Levy.
Yes.
And that'll be the first one that closes, and then it'll move from park to park.
Okay.
East River won't. They said it would be late November for the small portion of the East River East River Park that they will be closing. So they're trying to time it for later.
So the next issue are the parks in general. And what's the plan for when the parks open? Again, the same thing. How will they be cleaned, maintained, all that stuff? There's just nothing that's come out with some idea, a pie in the sky idea of what they're going to do. And we want to know what it is. The third thing is that, you know, people who have been isolated for so long are dealing with this terrible loneliness, and there's no place to sit to be around other people, even socially distanced. I don't mean unsocially distanced, but, you know, it's a very big issue, and the pops are closed, you know, and they're supposed to be open. Now, I understand that these buildings don't want something else to clean. I get it. But they're supposed to be open. So if they're not opening, is there some kind of rule that's come out that during this pandemic thing, they can remain closed, or are they supposed to be open? But if they open, how will they be cleaned so it's safe for people to go in there?
Asia, you're on mute.
Thanks, Pam. I think your point about the pops as well as parks is well taken. You know, CDC just recently came out with some recommendations that the transfer of the COVID-19 doesn't happen on objects so much. I don't know. I didn't read it very specifically because I was just thinking about groceries. I'm curious if there have been any specificities around public spaces and how much like our subway trains, it's really about the compactness of the trains. Like to me, the park playground for a kid, the worry is that they're up close and playing with other kids, not necessarily that they've rubbed snot on.
Right, and they're caregivers.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right, but to your point, Pam, we can reach out. We'll speak to city planning to see if there was any guidance given about the pops being not necessarily having to be open during the pandemic.
Because I betcha there's something afoot about that. Well, maybe not. Maybe I don't bet you. But the thing is, they're closed, and
Yeah, well,
that seems really unfortunate.
we had this problem though even before the pandemic.
No, I
Right, right.
understand, but now, and this is where I'm saying to you that I'm so torn, because I don't want to go sit in there if it's not being cleaned and maintained. I mean, there's no place to go. You sit on a stoop. We're all back to sitting on stoops again.
Sandy, did you have your hand raised or?
And yes, I did. And I just want to point out, no one's cleaning the stoop. So, I think we have to rely on people's common sense to take care of themselves when they're outdoors. And closing the parks and the pops doesn't make any sense in that condition. So, I mean, we walk around on the streets. We are sitting on stoops. You see people doing this all the time. So, I strongly think we should open up the parks. But also, what about the dog runs? I mean, they've been closed and it's the same problem. People just use the rest of the park instead of the dog run. Is that an issue that you're going to specifically address in your letter?
I'll certainly add that. But the other thing is all the garbage cans have been removed from parks. Because you like around Gramercy Park, they took all the garbage cans away because the police department thinks that the demonstrators are going to come and set them all on fire and throw them and break things and blah, 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 blah. So there's no place. You see everyone walking a dog with a green bag, walking around trying to find some place to put it. And it's problematic, and I'm sure it exists in many of the parks.
B and then Kavitha, do you guys have questions? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I wanted this is B. I wanted to echo a little bit. I walk on the East River all the time, from 60th Street up to Gracie Mansion. There are benches there. I use the benches. I think, if it's out in the open, I think we need to open up these environments. People are all doing this. I think an individual has to evaluate the risk.
Right.
So I'm a big supporter in opening up spaces, and it's up to the individual to decide what their risk is, not for us to decide for them.
Right, but we also want to know if there's maintenance that takes place. What is the plan for maintenance?
Well, that's the thing. The other item for you is the funding. We need to make sure we ask for funding back because they're talking about cutting funding. I'm sorry, B.
No, I was just going to say, it's not a question. I haven't seen any plans for the East River or any of these walkthroughs. I think that's probably the least that they have with all the funding issues they have, but that shouldn't stop us from advocating that we open up these parks and these pops again.
Right.
Kavitha?
Yeah, just quick. I think the trash cans are back because I walked my dog. They were gone for a while and then they did return them, at least to my neighborhood.
What's your neighborhood?
Me too.
24, I'm on 24th Street and 2nd Avenue, and it was all up and down there. They had been gone for a while and they just brought them back a few days ago. And I'm also just wanted to mention
that's 13th precinct?
Yes.
Yes.
All around the 13th. And the 13th precinct, I know they have it cordoned off the street on either side of the,
right.
So there they may have removed them, just those blocks, but they're around everywhere else because I was one of those people carrying the green bag for a really inordinate amount of time. Anyway, and I found out where there were trash cans that were like,
yeah, me too. I know where they all are.
They're all like in like Claude's neighborhood, they're like hidden in that little plaza and stuff where I'm not supposed to bring my dog. But also I'm out on Long Island today and I just was watching, went for a walk by my old like elementary school and kids were playing on the playground, which I was kind of shocked about at first. But then I thought, you know what, it is okay. I think it's okay. I mean, it's really a matter of getting definitely cleaning, but also I think it might be on the caregivers, the parents to clean the kids, the kids' hands, the kids, are going to play on equipment and then come back. And I don't think we can keep all this stuff closed. Everyone's going to go nuts over the summer if we did.
Right.
And the kids are going to the park anyway. They're just not on the
and they're touching they're
right?
touching things. They're not going to not touch things.
And let's say there'll be more nuts because they're already nuts. If we
we're opening the dog runs too, please.
Yeah.
And Kyle, oh sorry.
Yeah, just what B said and what just mentioned. you know, I mean, some of this is also just kind of like your personal responsibility. I mean, you just bring some wipes along and some
Right.
hand sanitizer, and you can't really expect the city to be disinfecting everything for us all the time.
No, it's definitely, it's a risk-benefit decision that everyone has to make, but we do want to know if there's some plan for any cleaning
Yes.
and what it is.
Yeah, their strategy. Kyle has a question, then maybe we should move the agenda.
Yeah, I mean,
Kyle?
not a question, just want to, echo pretty much everything that everyone is saying. If, we're allowing people to congregate in front of restaurants and bars to have a drink, I think we should let the kids have a space and dogs a place to walk. So I agree, definitely ask for a plan for disinfectant, but I don't think it's a sticking point because, again, personal responsibility.
Molly?
Okay. Yes.
Molly, I'm sorry, just as a point of clarification on the transportation agenda, when it makes reference to city streets, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. Do you mean summer streets?
That's the restaurant. No, that's
Okay,
the restaurants.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And some open streets are the neighborhood groups opening, for play. So they're two different programs. Yeah. They're
Okay,
like, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pam.
so I'm going to work on the letter again tomorrow and see if I can whip it into shape, and I'll send it to you to have a look-see and see what you want to add to it or whatever. But and then we'll send it to the committee, and then we'll hopefully send it out. But I think it should definitely go to electeds and to the parks people.
Yeah, that's what we'll send it to the usual suspects. But
yeah, well, maybe
thank you.
Maybe some unusual suspects as well who might be advocates for this.
Okay, let's see. So full board meeting, we're not meeting in July. Yay. And let's see, budget, Brian, for budget committee.
Hello, we don't have to meet in July. We have a yearly plan where we have to meet in September, and then I guess we're going to talk about that in August. But September and October for budget.
Awesome.
In the meantime, while I have the floor, we've had a lot of good follow-up from committee chairs already about 2022 items. Again, what we have a submission that is due October 31st. We will be voting on it in October during full board. We really need these in by the end of the summer to figure out what your current priorities are. I would say process it as normal, except for any cases where you know that the city has already depleted or canceled a program. There are some programs that the community and that we liked a lot that have already been defunded, and we should probably mention those in this cycle, but otherwise handle as a normal cycle. For capital requests, we want the same things built and they are not tearing anything down. We're still asking for the same things. For expenses, most of the stuff will be the same. That said, we should take another trip around the priorities to figure out if we can't figure out, we were talking about this, but like if we don't have numbers for something, if you can't figure out, like if you want something increased, if you can't figure out by how much, those are the kind of things that we should question whether they should continue to sit on the budget register.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah, but
all right, thank you.
With all the budget cuts that are happening, at what point do you say, come on, there's no money. What's going to happen?
We'll have to figure it out.
The city budget is down a certain amount, but
a huge amount.
It isn't like down by half. If you believe that the neighborhood would benefit for something, you need to ask for it. Yep. Everybody needs to ask for those things. And if anything, this might be a year where, well, I had a thought in my head, but I'm going to backtrack on it. 2022, we should be recovered most of our tax revenues. So what we're requesting is for after the pandemic. And so I would just proceed as if things would be generally back to normal at that point. I expect that the city budget will have receded a little bit compared to where it was at before the pandemic, but not to an extent that we couldn't ask for normal expense items or capital requests.
Okay,
Right.
so here's
Okay.
a question for you. What's after the pandemic?
Well,
July
Pam, let's, oh, yeah.
2021.
Sandra, do you have a question?
no, I was just going to kind of echo with what Brian is saying. You know, the funding that we're asking for now is not necessarily for the next week or the next month. It's allowing the different agencies and departments to forecast where they should be focusing dollars in the future. So I think that us advocating for things that are important, obviously within the constraints that we have today, but that allows them to forecast what the important needs are in the future when we do have additional funds again.
Yeah, what we're
Thank you.
talking about right now is for a time period that starts more than 12 months from now.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I would say that, you know, proceed as normal, and then I will circle back in the meantime if the situation changes.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Brian. Corinne, Housing, Homeless, and Human Rights.
Okay, so we won't be having a meeting. So the only thing that I have to report is that per the request of Jim Collins, we have contacted Good Shepherd Services on East 17th Street. And it will be my first time where I am figuring out how to set up a cab. And that's it.
It's hard. Good luck.
Asya?
Thank you.
Oh, you're on.
Sorry. I keep pushing the wrong button. I'm happy to help you with that because we set up the ACS cab too a couple of years ago. So happy to work with you on that if that helps.
Thank you so much, Asya.
Great.
I appreciate it.
And the ACS cab is June 29th at 11 a.m.
Yes.
So we have folks attending that.
Yep, I'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the hotels that are housing homeless folks now in our community board, Jesus and I were on a call with Project Renewal the other day, and they're the hotel at 30th in Lexington is housing about 100 plus folks from Washington Heights shelter. And we all in all have 3 hotels that are housing homeless now. And so it's about, I would get an estimate of a little less than 400 people in our district that are in those 3 hotels. And Jesus, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have contact information if there are issues or problems with any of those hotels. And I think, Corinne, you should be looped in, or maybe you already are, but perhaps we have, you know, your next committee meeting, maybe we have, you know, just representatives from those.
Molly,
yes.
What's the other hotel beside the Barcel and Lexington Avenue?
The Pod at 39th between 3rd and Lex.
Oh, okay.
And there are about, oh shoot, I don't have my notes in front of me, but there are about 2,000 homeless individuals that are being, you know, placed throughout the city. So I was asking, is that right, Jesus? I should look at my notes. But so we have a small portion of them. I was asking if we're happy to help people that need housing and need shelter, but you know, we already have the 30th Street shelter and, you know, so on. And are we getting a disproportionate amount? And they, you know, I think it's very fair. We're not getting a big chunk. I think they're going throughout Manhattan and throughout the other boroughs. So, but I'd like for Corinne, you know, your committee to be more involved with that, of course.
Yeah. Molly, I know I brought this up in an email chain, but that article from the city where it was mentioned that for each homeless person per night that is being housed in a hotel, a service agency out in Texas receives $27 a night. And so if there's 2,000 homeless people and they get it per evening. I think I did the math and I don't remember the numbers, but within like 2 weeks, they're spending over $1.5 million just in a service to book these hotel rooms. And I just think it's outrageous. You and me could book hotel rooms You know, like we could make it a full-time job, and we could be booking millions of them and not get a million and not have to, you know, it doesn't have to be over $1 million. I think it's outrageous. And
Well,
it's
I
not,
think the system has been very frustrating for everyone. I think that so that is one instance, but it's been, you know, it's been very overly complicated and not easy. It's actually 2,000 homeless individuals from Project Renewal, which is the building at 30th and Lex. It's 161 Lexington, but the overall it's 17,000 single adults need to be housed.
yeah.
17 throughout.
Yeah. So if you speak with them, can you ask about this $27 a night fee? I mean, it just seems like somebody is getting very rich here on the backs of homeless people and our tax money. Unless the actual press article was overblown and not based on truth.
Okay, I'll look into that. All right.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I just wanted to give the whole committee that update. But yeah, for your committee, obviously, that's something that we should be very aware of. All right.
And Molly,
is that it?
answer
Yeah.
your previous question, we do have contact at those sites. In fact, we had gotten a couple complaints from some residents that there was loitering in front of the sites and they weren't social distancing or wearing masks. I had a conversation with Department of Home Services about this hotel site, and we've been in touch with the community residents that complained initially, and they say that they are now seeing a bigger security presence there, and that the condition seems to have resolved itself. So those conversations with DHS that we're having are working.
Great. Corinne, is that you're good? Oh, okay. We'll move on to Sandro for land use and waterfront.
Yeah, we don't have anything urgent to bring up and to have a meeting about. So right now we're not scheduled to have a meeting. We are still trying to track what's happening on the waterfront with the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project and the East Midtown Greenway. So I know Molly had a conversation that I wasn't unfortunately able to join yesterday, but we're going to try to get some commitments and figure out where we are and what sort of delay or not delay the different parts of the projects have and get them to be able to commit to that. So we're hoping to have a conversation around that, at least with DDC, if not EDC or Parks later this month. Molly's shaking her head, so I think they're still planning to come, hopefully.
Yeah, they are. No, they are. They
okay,
have,
good. And then, I think the next part, but to the point that was made earlier, I think we're going to try to reach out extracurricularly and see if we have some guidance on how POPs are or are not supposed to be operating during this this pandemic.
Great, thank you. Kavitha?
I had a question not about land use. It was going back to the hotels. Do we have a time frame, or do we know when? I know it was like temporary leases that were, I think we said that were granted for those. Do we have any idea what happens when that time runs out? Are they renewing? Did you find out anything in the meeting?
They will renew as long as they need to, but they have no time frame as to when they will be out.
I just know people in my neighborhood will ask me, so okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not very definitive.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. So Abby for health and education. Nope, we can't hear you. You're not on mute, but we can't hear you.
How about now?
Oh, there you go. Yes.
I don't have anything to report. I know we're not planning to have a meeting until September, but John possibly is joining the call at the end, so sorry, I'm not much help.
Let's see, is there any questions for health and education? I feel like there might, I thought I had something, but maybe not. I have too many notes here. No, okay. Okay, all right, well, thanks, Abby. If John, Seema, yes.
Just a quick question, Pam, from a health and education perspective, would it help you to have like more signs in the parks around, personal responsibility. I mean, we think it's obvious. I think it's obvious, but I'm just trying to think if there are like public education or public campaign type things that we can do that say like, please wash your hands like after you exit the park and whatever. I don't know what those things might be, but is there
Wear your mask, yeah, if you.
Yeah, exactly. Some public health guidelines we want to advocate for.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm all for it, but we have a culture of some people who just are not going to do it. And then we have to agree on what the signs are going to say. And if we put up signs, will it be enforced, or that just like, you know what I mean? I'm happy to add that to my letter.
Yeah, I think we New Yorkers are so much better behaved and taking care of ourselves during this time than a lot of states. So we should be pretty proud of ourselves. I mean, in general, my neighborhood, everyone's wearing their masks and being really respectful. And I don't know.
I'll say it's not, I would just say personally off the record, it's not unilaterally true. Like I see people in terms like outside bars, like,
yes,
I'm like, open container is still like, I'm like the like naysayer walking down like, whatever, the East Village yelling at people like, open containers are that's still a law. We still can't have, open containers out. And yeah.
Well, we're trying to pass legislation to make that legal, so.
Well, Brad was already talking the other day about withdrawing his legislation.
Oh, he was because of the Lower East Side.
It pains me to report this, but I have heard New York City constituent complaints, maybe not necessarily directly from our district, but people being really upset about some of the bars and some of the neighborhoods having very large crowds in front of them, and a lot of boozy people who are yelling and being disrespectful on top of just crowding the sidewalk and not allowing safe passage. So people feel like they have to cross the street and go on the other side of the road to get away from these people. Now, this is nothing new in terms of New York City behavior, but it's a little more critical right now that we support the restaurants by letting them do this, but also work with them in some sort of reasonable way to make sure that the customers are dispersing enough to allow for safe passage and not disturbing anybody.
Oh.
Are the customers allowed?
Let's take it by people that raise.
Police. That people are afraid to call the police.
Okay.
After everything that's happened with the police in the last month.
Let's B and Kyle and Pam, and then let's move the agenda.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Pam's comment about signage. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There is signage that the CDC has provided. Employers have signage when people are returning to work. It's just the basic factors of washing your hands, sanitizers, social distancing, and masks. So I think that's not an issue, Pam. There's a way, they already have the signs that we're talking about.
Great, thank you. Kyle?
Oh, I didn't have my hand up, but.
Oh, okay, I thought you were trying to, okay. And then Pam?
Yeah, do we have, do the places that sell liquor, do they let people in to use the bathrooms, or are we having issues about public urination?
Generally, they don't.
There's an uptick in the urinary, the bags, have you seen that? There's an uptick of people buying I don't know what they're called, but like where you
Boston?
Yeah, basically.
You're
They're sold
kidding.
out. You can't get them. You can't get them.
I did not know that existed.
That's so gross. I know.
Boy,
Anyway, okay.
People drink a lot if they're out doing that.
Oh wait, Claude has a quick. Claude?
Yeah, for Abby, as we go forward and talk about re-envisioning the police department, one of the areas where they're going to look at real close is the movement of school safety officers. And I think the committee should be cognizant and stay on top of that. A lot of schools have like from 10 to 12 school safety officers. So you need to know where they're going to shift them to, or are they going to cut it out of the budget? And if they do, are they going to replace them with school-based support people? It's a topic that you should be aware of as they make these changes.
Okay, yeah, that's a great suggestion. I'll talk to John about that. But if you have any suggestions on how to start looking into that, I think be happy to talk more with you about that.
Will do.
That's a lot of people in one school. If you're saying 10 to 12, yikes. Wow.
In my school, I had 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Where were we? Are we good with, let's see, I guess we were at Abby, moving to Kyle, business affairs and street activities.
So yeah, it's a great segue actually. So we don't have anything on the agenda for July yet, just because we're kind of taking it month by month. Earlier today, obviously the governor said that we're going to be in phase 2, I believe, starting next Monday. So we might get some applications by then. We don't know when, what phase we'll be in at that point. So we'll kind of see what comes from that. We also have a couple of things on our agenda item for this month that might need some follow-up in July. We're discussing how to, particularly with the public education point, create kind of like a consumer bill of responsibilities. So what are we as consumers supposed to be doing to make sure that businesses can run the right way? What are the social distancing, public health guidelines that we need to know as consumers that might, be different from what we're normally used to, and what can businesses obviously enforce and ask us as, customers to do? So, for example, the governor said that if you don't wear a face mask in a place of business, that they can refuse service to you. So making sure that the public is educated about things like that, and maybe have that up, kind of discussing what else would be relevant. Also, there are some issues with price gouging. So we've seen it in some other states where some businesses are passing on a fee or increasing prices without informing consumers of that price increase. Or actually adding like a COVID-19 surcharge to things. So we are discussing if that's something that, we need to be vigilant of, or request one of our elected officials to protect consumers against. And then of course, any other things that businesses are in need of. But then also going to the point of Senator Hoyland's bill, as we just quickly discussed, he's considering withdrawing it because of the abuse of it. Essentially, with people, congregating and things of that nature. I was actually discussing this with Cody because I'm not really sure why he would withdraw that, because his bill actually doesn't have anything to do with that. It's more about extending the executive order, and really the issue is about the mayor and the city enforcing those social distancing guidelines, which they haven't really done effectively. So maybe, requesting something from the city to actually be enforcing these social distancing guidelines, not allowing people to congregate in such huge numbers. I've been walking along 2nd Avenue and 1st Avenue and seeing like maybe 50 people or so in front of places just like hanging out. And I'm sure we all saw the video of that East Village, basically like party that was going on. So that's not really, I don't really think it's impacted by his bill really, but it's more about how do we actually enforce those public health guidelines, which we haven't seen from the city really.
One answer, Kyle, would be to close the streets, right? I mean, that would be
Exactly.
so people can be out and have spread apart more. They'd be out in the street rather
And
than.
it's more controlled, as anyone who attended the BASA meeting, the Restaurant Row East Alliance put together a really great presentation where they actually said, this would be the design where everything is spread out 6 feet apart, but everyone would actually be able to use it if, they did a reservation only system. So you would have to beforehand reserve a specific time slot and then only be there for a certain period of time. Of course, you would have to be, abiding by all public health guidelines. So if you need to wear face masks or be 6 feet apart, like you would have to abide by too. So it's actually a controlled environment where people would have to abide by social distancing guidelines and wouldn't be able to be a free for all where, everyone's gathering without basically supervision or parameters. So so we'll be monitoring that as well, and hopefully that gets done soon. And based on how that gets passed, we'll see if people need to apply for that or how that's really regulated and approved. So
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Kyle? You have
B.
Yeah, I just have one.
Oh, sorry, B.
Yeah, Carl. Listening to the governor when he got mad about the East Village, he said that state liquor authority should get involved. What would their role be? I thought it was the mayor and the city that had to enforce that?
So it's a little unclear. First of all, I don't know that they actually have the capacity to do that, to come down in the city, but it would basically be pretty much like any liquor license. If they're not abiding by it, sending out some investigators to make sure that they're abiding by it. But I honestly, I don't think they have the capacity to do that really. But I think what he really meant by that was more if if he doesn't see an observable difference, that he might just, kick us back to another phase. And that would mean, people reclosing and not being able to be open, or the capacity being further down. And that actually could affect the city streets that we're discussing, where you might say, you know what, you can't even do that. So yeah, so I mean, I don't really know what he would actually do, but I don't think it would really be feasible for the SLA to go to all of the bars in New York City alone, much less the rest of the state, and make sure that everyone is abiding by social distancing guidelines. So I think it pretty much would be kicking us back to an earlier phase or shutting us back down. But another thing to add is actually we're continuing with the CB8 partnership with the online workshop. So the next one is tomorrow night. I believe Jesus has put it in the weekly email as well as on social media. So I would encourage everyone to attend that. And that's actually, it's a legal workshop. So it's about workers' rights, employee rights, things of that nature, because, for example, actually we've seen it with some of the professional athletes where a couple of them have been outed as having COVID-19, which is in violation of HIPAA. So thinking about if workers are being tested, if they're, asked not to come back, or, is that something that they need to be revealing? So there'll be a whole legal workshop on that tomorrow evening. So I encourage everybody to attend. And we actually, in the future events, we have things on, the community responsibility and, the business perspective side of things. And we've invited the Restaurant Row East Alliance to speak on, their behalf as small business owners. So that's continuing as well. So if, I'd encourage everyone to attend, and any feedback that you have about it, or if you are hearing from people in the community, whatever stakeholder it is, someone from the public or a business owner, or a mother or a father, and they have, specific questions related to their perspective, please let us know, because we can adjust the workshops as we go forward, or we can actually change the subject of them if we see something as being really, pertinent, and that would be great too. So one of the things actually we're thinking about is switching one to actually kind of a re-update on what's going on with COVID, because a lot of, at least in our observation, have seen a lot of people kind of forget about what's going on with COVID-19 and not really taking it as seriously as before, especially when you see 50 people gather in front of a bar or restaurant on the street, and people not wearing masks. I have started to see people really just not wearing masks or anything anymore. So just kind of re-updating people, because there's a lot of hearsay, there are a lot of rumors going on. So actually part of the consumer education is making sure that we actually know what the facts are and what is it that people know right now, because that impacts how we behave and how things operate. So those are going well too.
Great, thanks, Kyle. Yeah, and the information's changing daily, isn't it? There we get new updates.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any questions or? Oh, Pam.
So what's happening outside the places where you can vote, early voting? Is that, is it all socially distanced? Is it civilized? What's it like inside those places? Is that something that we think about in business affairs and street activities? I mean,
That's not necessarily that committee, but I don't think that I don't even know the locations in our district.
There's one at 26th or 28th and 3rd, I want to say.
Yeah, my fiance went today to go vote early, and it was extremely socially distant. He said, like, they were doing an incredible job, at least from his anecdotal perspective on it.
Okay. Seema, where does he vote? What location?
He went to the Hunter College dorm, which is on.
That's right, 28th and 2nd, right?
Yes, yeah, I think what Kyle said. Yep.
That was my dorm in college.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are just doing absentee ballots. So I hopefully the polling sites are quiet, and I know they're doing a lot of safety measures for those.
Yeah, and then just to address that concern, I've seen a lot of the other businesses too, even banks have the social distance lines outside. So they actually have the decals on the street outside that are all 6 feet apart. And I've seen people actually obey that. And you know, the Target on 2nd Avenue as well. I always see a line there, and everyone's socially distant. And in some of these stores, actually, they even have like private security, I guess. So for the banks, I know the ATMs, they only allow 2 people in at a time. And if anyone even, you know, attempts to go in, they're like, no, get in line. So I've seen, you know, pretty good behavior on that, because I think at the end of the day, businesses realize obviously this is economic hit. They don't want to do anything that really violates that. So even with these crowds, there's only so much a business can do to say, hey, you know, stop hanging out. Like they only have a certain purview. So it's really about, you know, the city, you know, enforcing that and making sure people are dispersed and spread out and whatever it might be. So yeah, overall, I've seen really responsible behavior from the businesses, and that's what I've heard as well.
Me too. Okay, thank you. So that is all of the committees. Is there any old or new business? Okay, no hands raised, seeing none. Will a meeting adjourned unless there is an objection? Do we need to do we don't need to do a final roll call, do we? Like in full board? Okay, good.
Not for exec, no.
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn.
Okay.
Second. All right, good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Adios.
Thank you.
Adios.
Stay well, everybody.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.